go, Jeff.
Yeah. Let's wait for the more participants to join us. I think the participants are slowly coming in. I think it's 52.
So Jeff, we're going to remain mute unless it's time for us to speak. So I'm going to put it on mute.
Yes.
Jeff, you've got the audience.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to our session on LAWASIA session on Belt and Road Initiative. My name is Jeff Leong. I'm the co-chair of the Belt and Road Committee. I'm your moderator for this afternoon's webinar. I'm pleased to report that we have with us today 242 registrants from all over Asia and also other parts of the world from 39 jurisdictions. The theme of our webinar is on building connectivity for sustainable belt and road development. Our panelists will talk about belt and road hubs in their jurisdictions, respective jurisdictions. And our speaker from Untitled will talk about the conventions that are applicable to the Belt and Road Initiative. I'd like to begin by saying this, that both the old Silk Road and now the new Silk Road, also known as the Belt and Road Initiative, promotes division of labor along the Ricardian model of comparative advantage. So each of our speakers today will tell us about their situation in their respective countries. Our first speaker is from China, Ms. Zhang Wei. She's the chief partner and founder of Beijing Great Win Law Firm. She's also a former vice president of the Beijing Lawyers Association. I will now call upon Ms. Zhang Wei to speak to us. Ms. Zhang Wei.
Yes. Chinese, yes. Afternoon. Chinese lawyers on Belt and Road. President of LAWASIA, host of session meeting, delegates, guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zhang Wei. I am the director of Beijing Great Win Law Firm, the first Chinese firm combining legal series with practice and with 13 overseas offices. Beijing Great Win and Great Win Law Firm is widely known in fields of foreign legal affairs, capital markets, and governmental legal control. The speech. Next, I am honored to have this chance to share with you the role and contribution of Chinese lawyers along the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. BRI are sorted from of the Silk Road economical belt and 21st century maritime Silk Road was unveiled by Chinese President Xi Jinping in 2013 to advocate international cooperation and development, suggestion mutual international between civilization and promote world peace. Since it is beginning, BRI has yielded twofold outcomes, embracing 65 countries and territories along the routes in areas such as energy, transportation, telecommunication, and infrastructure. According to the studies provided by Chinese government, foreign direct investment from China to countries along the routes and surpassed $90 billion US. In 2019, amount of newly signed agreement contract and implementation of service contract had 150 billion and 80 billion US dollars. Beyond the globalization, Chinese companies must cooperate with syndicates, world mutual issues in contracts with different legal system, language, cultures, even values. As a root, legal safeguard is an important guarantee for implementing the initiative, and the lawyers' engagement becomes the key to success in area BRI project. Chinese lawyers with profound knowledge and expertise in international market explore the local legal environment and perform necessary due diligence informed Chinese lawyers' cooperation with local lawyers by sharing information, acknowledging the legal risks and challenges of projects brought about by difference of laws, language, and cultures, and provide practical solution of Chinese enterprises. During the whole process, Chinese and local lawyers cooperating communication and promote the chance of success, which ensures the implementation of BRI. The Laws Association of China also found the Belt and Road International Lawyers Association in 2019 provide an open environment of Chinese along the routes and offering language support to BRI construction. Beijing Lawyers Association and my leadership published the series of legal research report of investment overseas by Chinese enterprise, which contains safe analysis of legal issues such as investment, trade, environment, protect intellectual properties, and dispute resolution of the jurisdiction along the BRI routes. The publication of the series provides the early warning who Chinese enterprise can evaluate the legal risk of foreign investment, contributing to the development of the foreign-related legal service industry in Beijing and even the whole China. Concerning footnotes, dispute resolution, Chinese lawyers also play a significant role from the Shanghai Commercial Admission Center found in 2011 to the arbitration court of BRI. Granted in 2016, then to the China International Commercial Court founded by the Supreme People's Court of China in 2018, where the Chinese lawyers wrote solid compensation for prevailing to dispute resolution. In addition, individual lawyers deliver legal product to Chinese interests and citizens throughout the go-out progression of indices. I served as the chief legal counsel of the Department of Consular Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China since 2014, safeguarding the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese overseas enterprises and citizens. In 2017, the Chinese government related the opening and develop the following related legal service industry, expecting Chinese lawyers to provide solid legal service for BRI, as well as the global strategy and promote mutual understanding and cooperation through communications with lawyers along the routes. Today, I'm glad to see that those goals are quickly completion, and I'm most looking forward to expect sales with you and make a contribution to the BRI. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chang, for sharing with us the experience and the contribution of Chinese lawyers in China supporting Chinese Go enterprises and the Belt and Road Initiative. Thank you very much. Next, I will call upon Mr. Shang Chongchong from China, also partner of Grandor Law Firm in Ningbo. He is also the Vice Director of Foreign Affairs Committee of the Ningbo Lawyers Association. Mr. Shang, please begin your presentation. You can unmute your microphone. Mr. Shang, you have to unmute your microphone.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me show my PPT. Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Mr. Xiang Kongkong from China, Grand Law Firm. So today my speech is about Zhejiang as a hub in build and road with CEC and my experience about mediation and arbitrations. So first, I will introduce that Zhejiang is in the east of China. There are two famous cities in Zhejiang province. One is Ningbo, is my hometown, and the other is Yiwu cities. Why these two cities are so important in Belt and Road? So first, let me introduce something about my cities. Part one is about 17 plus 1 CEC commercial and trade cooperation demonstration zone and Ningbo. So the background is since 2013, Ningbo has become the epitome of the China CEC economic and trade cooperations. And we have 3 sessions of the Ministerial Level Conference of China and Eastern European countries on promoting the trade and economic cooperations. And 4 seasons of China CEC invest and trade export. Ningbo is China's first 17 plus 1 economic and trade cooperation demonstration zone, and we issued a document named the Execution of Plan for establishing 17 plus 1 economic and trade cooperation demonstration zone. And to build Ningbo into the first choice in 3 years will be the export from CEC and the China CEC investment and cooperation and China CEC culture exchanges. And so we can see that Ningbo and CEC trade as a percentage of trade is higher and higher along years, and this is why Ningbo play an important role in the trade and China trading between CEC. And we have a platform for cooperation and coordination mechanism between China customers and the CEC customers. And we have 5 platforms such as the CEC Trade Legislative Zone and the CEC Industry Park and the CEC Conference Hall and the CEC Cooperation Academy. And we also have has an office of CEC Exposition and Cooperation Affairs. So the next is Yiwu. Yiwu is in Zhejiang province, and Yiwu, and I will introduce something about the Yiwu and the Belt and Road in BRI. So due to the BRI, Yiwu, the world's largest wholesale center, trade with the countries along the Belt and Road more and more frequently. Yiwu is an important city involved in BRI. China opened the first cargo railway we called Yixingou in Chinese. Do you know what is Yixingou? Yixingou means Yiwu, from Yiwu to Xinjiang province and to Europe. So we call Yixingou, and this is the name of a train. This railway links Yiwu and Europe. Until now, Yiwu has opened 12 cargo lines and also set up 4 branches and 5 logistics and distribution centers along the this cargo land. So it means this cargo, this railway can take the goods from EU across the Xinjiang province and across Kazakhstan and to Middle Central and Middle Central and Middle East Europeans. This is a very long trip, I think. But 11 days, so many goods was transported by this train and to Europeans. So despite the pandemic, Yixing-O, the cargo line, still has momentum. Since June 3rd, the number of freight trains has reached 300 less than a month later, but the number has reached 400 one month later. EU set up the nation's first weather station for trade with countries along the Belt and the Road. So it provides weather information for commercial and logistics along China and European freight trains on. This is a software. So on the online government server platform, it is easy for us to check the weather information and other information through this online software. And it's easy for businessmen and to know what's the weather and what is and other information for do business with Central and East Europeans. So currently, the global economic situation is still uncertain as each country's economy is struggled by COVID-19. Under such a situation, the direction of win-win cooperation is unchanged, despite the obvious increase in number and the challenge faced by China, CEC, economic and trade investment. After the outbreak of pandemic, the Export and Import Bank of China has taken a long agreement on the Hungarian execution of the Belgrade and Budapest Railway with Minister of Finance of Hungary. So it will facilitate the full connection of Belgrade and Budapest Railway at the formation of China's European Trade International Channel. Before that, 300 Chinese and foreign enterprises attended the 17+1 meeting and fair regarding information exchange of work and production, the resumption of small and medium-sized enterprises in Beijing, and seeked almost 70 different types of cooperation against it. 17+1 and cooperation still maintain a good momentum. So here are the features and the risks of economic and trade ties. From China and the CEC, mainly in common good trades, such as pencil, clothes, shoes, and low value of the goods in 1PI. And the way of transaction is TT instead of letter of credit. We see that TT is so easy and so quickly. So the letter of credit is so a little trouble. So TT is in TT instead of the LC. And because the value of goods is in low, so last export in credit insurance and maybe businessmen like use TT instead of credit insurance. So the company small size of foreign enterprise and poor risk capability, and the change of foreign currency and the profit will be the risk. And the most important is that the real buyer is not the party of a sales contract and receive money in the name of an offshore company without a contract. So you such as BVI company and like this offshore companies, and no formal sales contract and not receive full payment on goods. It is the risk and do business. So here are some the features of arbitration and mediations concerning resolution on NIMBO and CEC commercial dispute. Here are my experience. The features is that AOC instead of credit letter and no formal contracts and the party not part A, part B, but an official company and so the low value in goods and the risk is lack of knowledge with the law and the rules of procedure, because we can easily understand American law, UK law, but it's a little difficult for us to understand Poland law, Hungary law, and of course maybe the Poland company can't understand what is the Chinese law. So it takes a long time to feel the lawsuit seeking recover as well as carry out the decisions, and the lack of experts in how to deal with international debates. So why is mediation? And mediation is the best way for settlement of commercial. So in no place on time, no time restriction, and we can mix the arbitration and the mediation together, and the low cost and no lawyer fee and no lawyer fees, and so what we should do, and as a method to mediation, and we should try to persuade the parties by emotion and reasons, and take time to establish business cooperation and trust. I think in the business of different countries, trust is the most important thing in different countries, and we should try to put yourself in their shoes to understand the difficulty of the foreign clients. We should consider what is the difficulty for the foreign countries and stand in their shoes. It is important, I think, and we can take a alternative method such as replaying debit with other ways of transactions. And we can bring the third party in property, and such as freight forward, and to join the mediation and to explain the legal principles. And the most important thing is we should keep in touch with our clients, and not lose touch with the parts. And if you lose touch with the parts, it is a risk for you to business. So we should keep in touch. It is the most important thing, I think. No, and the last is to reach an agreement on arbitration costs during the mediation, because most of business will use PI, not a contract. So in PI, we don't have costs such as in case of any trouble, we can go to Singapore international arbitration. No, but so we can reach an agreement through the mediation, and to join the mediation, and we can have arbitration costs. So in case we can't finish our problem, so we can send this case to the arbitration center such as Singapore, Hong Kong. So this is some of my experience about mediation and arbitration between BRI and Belt and Road. Thank you, Mr. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shang. We hope to learn from our speakers from China in future sessions more about the Belt and Road Initiative, especially this very special train, Yiwu train, all the way to Europe and back to China. We know very little of this, so we hope to learn more, and also to talk a bit about the importance of the digital economy. I think last week President Xi Jinping talked at the China International Fair in Trade and Services, CIFTIS, where he talked about after the post-COVID-19 recovery, where many things are now going online, the digital economy is going to be very important. So we hope in future to learn more about the digital economy from China. Thank you to our two speakers from China. Now I'll call upon Ms. Atita, our Commander, Head of the Uncitral Regional Center for Asia and the Pacific, to tell us about her experience in working on the Singapore Convention on Mediation and also its application to the Belt and Road Initiative. Over to you, Atita.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Greetings to everyone from the Uncitral Regional Center for Asia and the Pacific in Incheon, South Korea. My name is Athita Kaminder, and I head Uncitral RCAP. My thanks and congratulations to LAWASIA for successfully organizing its first online annual conference, and I am very honored to be participating in today's session. So I assume everyone can see the PowerPoint that I have here in English and Chinese. So yes, you may be asking yourselves right now, what is Uncitral and how does it relate to One Belt, One Road and building connectivity? The key takeaway here is harmonization. Uncitral, or the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, is the core legal body of the United Nations in the field of international trade and commercial law. Its mandate is to promote the progressive harmonization and modernization of international trade law in order to address concerns that conflicts and divergences arising from the laws of different states in matters relating to international trade constitute an obstacle to the development of world trade. Uncitral texts are negotiated with the involvement of a variety of states representing different legal traditions and levels of economic development. This helps ensure Uncitral texts are widely acceptable as offering solutions appropriate to diverse jurisdictions. Now, One Belt, One Road extends across a wide range of jurisdictions with diverse levels of development and different legal systems and cultures. Sound familiar? Well, the work of Untitled therefore perfectly complements One Belt, One Road. Untitled legal instruments, whether they be treaties, model laws, or legislative guides, recognize that the development of international trade is in the interest of all people, all jurisdictions. Different legal regimes constitute a transaction cost to the development of international trade, as mentioned by previous speakers, and there is therefore a need to promote the progressive harmonization of international trade law to facilitate cross-border trade and commercial transactions. The legal certainty afforded by harmonization is universally enjoyed, including across the Belt and Road, and would decrease the level of risk and transactional costs associated with doing business, thus promoting international trade. Untitled instruments, in addition to harmonizing trade, are useful for One Belt, One Road as they cover the lifespan of a transaction, starting with deal making under the CISG, as shown here. For 40 years, the CISG has been providing a modern, efficient, and neutral legal framework for all aspects of international sales contracts of goods, from formation to the obligations of the buyer and seller and remedies for breach. As you can see, many CISG jurisdictions are part of One Belt, One Road. There are currently 93 state parties from all regions, economic and legal systems. This includes China, which joined in 1986 and is a very active user. And more recently in the Asia Pacific region, Vietnam, North Korea, and Laos. 13 out of the top 15 global exporters and 12 out of the top 15 global importers are CISG contracting states. And the CISG applies to over 80% of the global trade in goods. Moving on from deal making now to dispute resolution. Most of you would be familiar with the New York Convention, perhaps the most famous of Untitled instruments, with near universal participation by 165 states, including those in One Belt, One Road. The New York Convention provides common legislative standards for the recognition of arbitration agreements and court recognition and enforcement of foreign and non-domestic arbitral awards, subject to only specific limited exceptions, and thus facilitates the resolution of disputes along the Belt and Road. Like the New York Convention, the Singapore Convention on Mediation strengthens respect for binding commitments, inspires confidence in the rule of law, and ensures fair treatment in the resolution of disputes arising over contractual rights and obligations. The further advantage of the Singapore Convention is that it would not be necessary to transform the settlement agreement into an award for enforcement purposes. In addition, mediation is a highly efficient tool. It's on average less costly and more expedient than other forms of dispute resolution. One statistic showed that 90% of mediations take only a day to complete. Mediation provides for a high degree of flexibility and party autonomy. Parties create their own process and work on their own agreement to find the most convenient solution, which allows parties to preserve relationships and reduces the instances where a dispute leads to the termination of a commercial relationship. As shown by the growing number of signatories, the Singapore Convention is acceptable to states with different legal, social, and economic systems. Approximately half of the signatories are in the Asia Pacific and include many along the Belt and Road, thus providing additional tools for parties to resolve commercial disputes. Like the New York Convention, benefits of the Singapore Convention will only be amplified as the number of state parties increase. Enforceability lies at the heart of the New York Convention, but such a mechanism did not previously exist for international settlement agreements. The often cited challenge to the use of mediation was the lack of an efficient and harmonized framework for enforcement of international settlement agreements resulting from mediation. The United Nations General Assembly thus adopted the Singapore Convention to address this need. The convention establishes simplified and streamlined procedures to invoke and enforce settlement agreements resulting from mediation. Key provisions include Article 1, read with the definitions in Article 2, that set out the convention's scope of application, namely that it applies to international agreements resulting from mediation, concluded in writing by parties to resolve a commercial dispute. Certain types of disputes are excluded, like those arising from consumer, personal, family, or household purposes. Also excluded are settlement agreements approved or concluded by a court and enforceable as such, and settlement agreements recorded and enforceable as an arbitral award. Article 3 sets out the general principles of the convention, providing that each state party to the convention shall enforce a settlement agreement in accordance with its own domestic rules of procedure. Article 4 specifies what a party relying on a settlement agreement needs to supply to the competent authority of the state party to the convention where relief is sought. Examples include the settlement agreement signed by the parties and evidence that the settlement agreement resulted from mediation. And Article 4 also allows for electronic communications. Article 5, much like the New York Convention, sets out limited grounds for a competent authority of a state party to the convention to refuse to grant relief, such as that a party to the settlement was under some form of incapacity, if granting the relief would be contrary to the public policy of the enforcing state, which is party to the convention, or if there has been a serious breach of mediator standards. Article 8 specifies the types of reservations permitted by the convention, which can be made and withdrawn at any time. The Singapore Convention on Mediation entered into force just this past weekend on Saturday, 12th September, and a digital celebration was held. Representatives from states that have ratified the convention joined the ceremony from Singapore, Fiji, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Belarus, and Ecuador. The text of the Singapore Convention and the accompanying 2018 Untitled Model Law on Mediation can be found on the Untitled website. Also on the website are all Untitled instruments, model laws, explanatory text, and other guides. The material is available in English, Chinese, and the other 4 United Nations languages. The links are there. The link to the Untitled website is also on this last slide in English, as well as the Chinese link. And if you would like to receive news and developments on trade and Untitled developments in the region, please subscribe to Untitled RCAP's website. The QR code is there, as well as our office email if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Atita. Your work in Untitled is very important to the Belt and Road. I think the instruments, the conventions that you put in place is certainly going to help make the Belt and Road initiative more successful in future. What I wanted to also say is perhaps if one of the speakers could talk about it a bit more later on is on investor-state disputes, because we are now coming across requests to look into mediation for investor-state disputes. When investor-state dispute first came out, even though there was consideration to resolve it, but unfortunately only arbitration was available then, so nobody went into mediation. But recently, we also have requests from our own government here in Malaysia is to relook into the dispute resolution clauses of investor-state treaties. I will now call upon Mr. Amir Ali Nasir from Hong Kong. He's the Vice President of the Hong Kong Law Society. Mr. Amir Ali, over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Oh, you can see my slide?
Yes, we can see.
Thank you very much. So my name is Amir Ali. I'll be dealing with issues of Belt and Road in the Hong Kong state. I'll be dealing with 4 areas very quickly. Dispute resolution, as it applies to Hong Kong or contracts relating to Hong Kong. Infrastructure connectivity, green infrastructure, and legal services. So the advantages of Hong Kong for the Belt and Road, of course, is the fact that we have, of course, all the countries have rule of law, but the unique thing about our rule of law is it's based on the common law system, as it was before 1997, but of course, with variations post 1997, and a majority of those common law systems and regulations that were applicable from the English system are also applicable to Hong Kong. So those who are familiar with the common law system will find it very familiar if you were to come to Hong Kong even now. But of course, there are variations to that. And of course, overlaid on top of that is that we are one country, 2 systems, and we have within our basic law certain principles from laws from China also applicable to Hong Kong through the basic law. And so that's a unique feature of Hong Kong. The other feature is that we're probably the only country in the world which has judges from common law jurisdictions sitting in our highest court, which is a court of final appeal, which is vested with the power of final adjudication. So that's unique for Hong Kong. It allows judges from outside in different jurisdictions to come in and participate in the final adjudication process. And they bring in a great deal of their foreign knowledge and foreign laws as they relate to common laws. And that's a unique thing about common law countries and how common law adapts in different countries, as you can see from Malaysia, Pakistan, India, and other common law countries in the African states. We also trusted regulatory regime in the sense that we adopt a majority of the international standards. If you talk about accounting, the accounting standards adopted by the HKICPA, the anti-money laundering provisions as they incorporated from the FATF principles, and also the legal jurisdictions, like for instance, the New York Convention, as you already heard, hopefully party to the Single Court Convention as well. There is also a high degree of transparency. I know you'll be hearing a lot of news, but this is why we have these international conferences. Those who work in Hong Kong can confirm that there is still a high degree of transparency in Hong Kong. We also have a deep pool of local and international talent, legal talent, and the Law Society, although it's quite small, consists of over 10,000 practicing solicitors. Of course, there are more if you take non-practicing. There are 932 law firms. There are 91 different foreign registered law firms practicing their foreign law. And we have 1,688 foreign lawyers who work within Hong Kong law firms that provide expertise in their jurisdiction from different countries and jurisdictions around the world. We also have 41 associations, and that's what I mean by a broad pool of local and international talent. We also have an effective dispute resolution and arbitration mediation center, strong protection for intellectual properties, a presence in the world-class arbitration institutions, the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center, and we have reformed legal regimes for arbitration, and we have structured mediation framework for accredited mediators. We also deal with a lot of family law mediation where it might improve cross-international jurisdictions. We have family disputes, and we have some very large family cases, and in fact, case law, depending on that. As far as arbitration is concerned, we have new developments on a game-changing measure of reciprocal enforcement provisions on interim measures, and that's unique. So as of 1st October 2019, Hong Kong is actually the first place and its only jurisdiction outside the mainland where, as a seat of arbitration, parties in arbitral proceedings can actually take advantage of mainland courts' interim measures, which is unique. And there are a number of interim measures have actually been applied for and been effective in Hong Kong. And the procedure is relatively simple. Hong Kong also enjoys the rights to apply for interim measures before the mainland courts, before the commencement of arbitration or during the arbitration proceedings. So that's unique, irrespective of the nationality or domicile of the parties involved. And that, I think, is a game changer as far as those who have contracts in the mainland and wish to have interim measures. Third-party funding is also now possible in Hong Kong, although we do have Shambati. We have third-party mediation legislation, third-party funding amendments ordinance, and a code of practice for third-party funding of arbitration from these particular ordinances, which allows third parties to participate in the funding of arbitration. They have to file, these third-party funders have to file returns under Section 98 of the ordinance, but there's no direct code of conduct for solicitors involved in third-party funders, save that a solicitor's firm that's involved in the arbitration cannot actually be a funder. So of that arbitration, of these amendments, divisions 1, 2, 4, and 6 are effective as of 23rd of June, but divisions 3 and 5 come into effect after they come into place. The ordinance doesn't actually change the common law doctrine of champity and maintenance, which is still maintained as a common law principle in Hong Kong. So that's to be noted. As far as the code of practice for third-party funding is concerned, we have that in place. Third-party funders have to file a return, as I've said. Third lawyers who are involved in the arbitration cannot participate in it. but there's no code of conduct for lawyers directly in relation to third-party funding activity. As far as mediation is concerned, mediation is encouraged during the litigation process. It's also encouraged as a dispute resolution process alternative to litigation, and it's encouraged in Hong Kong across all dispute resolution, starting from the simplest family mediation, and other commercial and other mediation. So that's to be considered as very important in relation to adjudication of disputes. It's also the first jurisdiction in Hong Kong, in Asia, to allow for an apology legislation which promotes and encourages the mediative process. It was discovered in other jurisdictions that an apology legislation overcomes a lot of emotional issues, so that you can get those out of the way, and the mediation process can then deal with the issues that the parties felt beyond the emotion. And therefore, apology is an important part of getting the mediation process started. There is strong support from government. There is a set of e-mediation, e-arbitration rules, which will be available for the platform. Of course, we also have EBRAM and advanced technologies, blockchain real-time translations, which provide platforms for parties to deal with electronic mediation as well. The infrastructure and connectivity is that we've had 30 years of build and construction. It's a major practice area in Hong Kong. We have major leading firms from around the globe dealing with construction disputes. We call them Bricky experts. And according to the government procurement survey, capital works and construction constitute 60% of government's outsourced resources. So construction is still a major part of our industry in Hong Kong. So there are 5 categories of projects that the Hong Kong government procurement deals with: wholly government-owned, especially franchise, and projects operated by statutory bodies, such as industrial estates and science park. Connectivity, we have projects dealing with tunnels, three cross harbour tunnels and 2 highway tunnels. Projects operated on a PPP arrangement, for instance, a cyberport, and we have PPP and PFI, such as Marine Police Headquarters and Central Police Station, just to name a few. Infrastructure connectivity, recent projects, as you can see here, I'm not going to cite them out to save time. We have connectivity in the sense that we have Hong Kong law firms which are experienced in project finance work. We have Hong Kong law firms who are involved with major infrastructure projects along the Belt and Road region as well. Green infrastructure has been very important. In fact, I gave a talk a number of times on green infrastructure. It is essential to have green infrastructure for a project like a program like the Belt and Road, because it involves a huge impact on the development structure. And in the 21st century, it's important for us to have ecological, social, economic, and socio and geopolitical consideration within the infrastructure projects, which is key. As you can see from the COVID-19, if we do not look after the earth responds back to us. So it is very important that we take into account green infrastructure, particularly in the Belt and Road environment. So again, I'm not going to go into this. And finally, if I may focus on the legal talent, we have a large pool of professionals admitted in multiple jurisdictions. And the key takeaway, I would say, for Hong Kong, if you were to look at it, is if you come from a jurisdiction which is a common law jurisdiction, or a European jurisdiction where you deal with common law and civil law together, then the unique feature about Hong Kong is familiarity. Familiarity with the common law system, familiarity with the system which adopts both common law and civil law, and that familiarity allows for ease of business and ease for investments. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Amir Ali. I think I like the idea of apology legislation in Hong Kong. I would recommend that strongly here in Malaysia. I'm a mediator both in Malaysia and in China as well. And the emotional issues, if you have an apology, it's not about right and wrong. Most of the time it's about what the underlying issues are, and apology goes a long way to resolving disputes, and mediation using apology with the help of apology legislation will certainly help. And I hope more Belt and Road countries will adopt this idea from Hong Kong, an apology legislation. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Amirali. The next speaker we have is from Singapore, Mr. Winston Xiao. He's a partner with Readers Karawong law firm in Singapore. Winston will share with us the experience in Singapore in terms of being a Belt and Road Initiative hub. Over to you, Winston.
Thanks, Jeff. Let me get this. Okay, you can see the screen, right? It's there.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, good. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, in many ways, Singapore is very much the same as Hong Kong in terms of its feature. And due to the shortness of time, I'll just probably focus on probably three main features that make Singapore an ideal Belt and Road hub. Okay, Singapore has always been at the center of the activity in Asia, in particular Southeast Asia, and is always right at the very beginning very supportive of the Belt and Road Initiative. Singapore is inclusive in terms of market discipline and Singapore was a founding member of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank with 103 members, and Singapore has worked closely with China to identify infrastructure connectivity, financial connectivity, third-party cooperation, and services areas of cooperation. Now, so as a business hub, Singapore can share its business network in the sense that if any international firms or any businesses that wish to participate or invest or work on BRI projects, then Singapore is a good place because a lot of the Chinese state-owned enterprises and private-owned enterprises set up offices in Singapore. Deloitte's research found that at least 90% of the Chinese state-owned enterprises have offices in Singapore, and they use it as a financial hub. So it is a good place for, like I said, foreign companies, businesses who wish to make connections with the Chinese businesses to carry out BRI projects. Singapore is also a good base for Chinese companies or the BRI to go beyond just the usual energy infrastructure. I mean, the previous speakers, most of them, when we talk about BRI, we're always talking about infrastructure. But actually, from Singapore, Singapore can help BRI to go beyond just infrastructure. So Singapore is the founding country and driver of the ASEAN Smart City Network. Now, the ASEAN Smart City Network is actually a smart, sustainable urban development project which tries to use technology as an enabler. So Singapore can help Chinese companies plug into such projects in the Southeast Asian regions. And lately, if you've seen the news, China's tech giants, Tencent, Alibaba, ByteDance has now picked Singapore as its Asian hub. These three big tech companies not only just use Singapore as their hub, they are also, together with quite a few Chinese companies, including Xiaomi, have also applied for digital banking license in Singapore. Now, Singapore has always been a financial center, very much like Hong Kong, and getting investments and financing is something which Singapore corporates are very experienced and have a lot of knowledge in. It is currently the world's second largest wealth management center, third largest financial market with thriving commodities hubs. It hosts many financial institutions and key industry players with the expertise to undertake infrastructures, project structuring, and financing. Moving forward, Singapore, like I said, is moving towards being a fintech global center for fintech innovation, and is partnered Chongqing as the dual financial gateway serving Western China and Southeast Asia. So Singapore is therefore in a very strong position to complement and augment and even provide new funding methods and to work with a multilateral organization like the AIIB. Now, Singapore's strength really, other than, I mean, in terms of the financing, how it comes about is that it understands infrastructure, finance, and is a legal hub as well. So it is very common to see foreign companies setting up Singapore holding vehicles to take advantage of our double taxation agreements, our international investment treaties, arrangements with a lot of countries, as it provides not just tax savings, financial efficiency, and it also provides investment protection. A recent, an example which I fleshed out here is actually a recent effort was a $300 million, 225 megawatt power plant project, which Sembcorp, which is a Singapore company, and Ming Yen combined to have created or to construct this 225 megawatt power plant in Myanmar. This project was financed by the Multilateral Development Bank, which is made up of ADB, IFC, AIIB, and also private sector financiers like Capital, DBS Bank, DZ Bank, and OCBC Bank. This is the first internationally and competitively tendered power project in Myanmar, and this project helps to set an important benchmark for private sector financing. Well, as my learned friend just said, yes, about Hong Kong, Singapore is also a legal hub. Very, very similar to Hong Kong. It is also based on a common law system. It has an independent judiciary, stable government, and it's also supported by very competent judges and lawyers with knowledge and experience. And we also have a lot of foreign lawyers working in Singapore. But Singapore International Arbitration Center has been doing really well in the last few years. In 2018, Singapore International Arbitration Center received 402 new cases from parties in 65 jurisdictions. 2019, it increased to 479. Overall, the number has gone up quite substantially 4 times over the last decade. I mean, personally, from my firm, I mean, we see a lot of arbitration in Singapore from like Indian clients and Chinese clients. And most of these arbitration relates to projects, some of them Belt and Road projects that are actually in Southeast Asia. So like, for example, a power plant project in Indonesia, a highway project in Vietnam. Now, because of the need to provide good legal services within this region, and the increase in arbitration cases for SIEC in Singapore, the Singapore courts actually established an alternative to international arbitration, and this was done in 2015. And this is to avoid some of the problems encountered in international arbitration. Now, the SICC is a division of the Singapore High Court, and therefore there is a right to appeal to the Singapore Court of Appeal, which is a feature which most arbitration is final. So this is a feature that may be attractive. Now, the panel of judges are all made up of, it is a panel of eminent international and local judges. So you'll have judges from the States, Australia, Japan, India sitting on the SICC. Now, judgments, I mean, the advantage of this is also judgments from the SICC are enforceable in common law countries and countries with reciprocal enforcement rights with Singapore, and any contracting states of the 2005 Hague Convention on Choice of Court Agreements. And finally, I'll probably cut this short because I think earlier on, Ms. Kominda spoke about it when she spoke about UCITRAL, is the Singapore Mediation Convention. This was came into force last week in Singapore, and there was this big ceremony that was flashed out just now. My information is a bit dated because I understand from her slide that it is now 53 states. There were 52 states. Now the key advantage is basically if there is any mediated settlement agreement and there's no longer a need for if you're taking action against the party that breached, if it's from a contracting country, then there's no need for you to commence legal proceedings all over again. We usually in a claim for under contract. So what happens is basically if you have a mediated settlement and the other party doesn't honor that mediation settlement, you can go straight to the court of the other party's country and enforce that settlement agreement. So with that, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Winston, for an excellent explanation of the situation in Singapore. Our next speaker is Ms. Saniya Perzadayeva from Kazakhstan. She's the managing partner of Unicase Kazakhstan, a law firm in Kazakhstan. And I would like to just highlight that last year, LAWASIA had a visit to Kazakhstan, and we held the Belt and Road seminar in Kazakhstan, thankfully sponsored by Ms. Saniya. And we hope one day we will do more with Kazakhstan as well, because Kazakhstan is a very important hub in the new Silk Road across Central Asia, from China across Central Asia to Europe and back. So over to you, Saniya.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, colleagues, dear colleagues. I'm very glad to speak today at our Belt and Road conference. Unfortunately, this is all happening online, and but we look forward that next time we will be meeting each other again, looking at each other's eyes and sharing some good news and going forward to each other, because Belt and Road, it's all about cooperation and going towards each other. So you can see that second, I'm trying to put this the strategic Belt and Road Initiative of China, of course, has a great significance. It has significance to Central Asian countries, including Kazakhstan. And as we know, China has already spent more than 200 billion and intends to spend more for this initiative. And of course, it offers tremendous opportunities for the business, and all nations are looking forward to participate in this project, where more than 130 countries signed this BRI agreements. With Kazakhstan, as for Kazakhstan, the Belt and Road Initiative is a great chance to grasp a shared interest and building a good basis for sustainable development of the entire continent and the state in particular. As you can see, Kazakhstan became one of the first nations to support Belt and Road Initiative, and a number of documents were signed in the capital of Kazakhstan to announce such initiative. And as a result of this, our ex-president adopted several programs with focus on implementation of Belt and Road Initiative's main goals. As you can see, Kazakhstan is located in Central Asia. It's a landlocked country in the middle of Eurasian continent. And it is the shortest land route which connects Asia and Europe, basically goes through Kazakhstan. That's why Kazakhstan spent and attracted financing to develop several programs, including highway, Western Europe, Western China Road, also railways and seaports of Aktau and Kurik. As you can see from this slide, Kazakhstan invested more than 30 billion American dollars in development of infrastructure, transport and logistics. In connection to the figures for the railways, it's almost 3,000 kilometers of national railways and highways, as I said. A certain attention should be put on establishment and development of Astana International Financial Center. Astana International Financial Center was established a few years ago. It is a unique hub on the map of the financial world. It offers several solutions and technologies used by international financial centers. There is also Astana International Financial Authority as a separate body, which is an integrated regulator that registers, authorizes, and recognizes all entities which carry financial and non-financial services activities. Basically, there are also banking and financial institutions which are registered at this Astana International Financial Center. And the key recognition, the key thing about this financial center is that it's the first institution in Central Asia, which offers complete and comprehensive legal platform for attracting, implementing, and protecting investments. The jurisdiction of Astana International Financial Center is based on principles and precedents of the law of England and Wales, and certain standards are applied. We also have judges coming from England and some other European countries. There is also Islamic Finance Center, established also within Astana International Financial Center. Certain movements and changes are being made to the local legislation to bring it to some international standards, and also to promote instruments of Islamic finance. Well, we also have a trading platform called AIX. It's international financial platform, and several institutional financial corporations are already registered and placed their securities at this platform. So we look forward to seeing new instruments at this Astana International Financial Center, and also new companies coming and registering at the center. Well, as I already said, Kazakhstan funding several projects called Nurly Zhol. Those programs fall under Belt and Road Initiative, and they plan to reconstruct and repair roads, railways, and also construct and develop new greenfield projects. Well, it's important to understand that Chinese and international companies need to develop, of course, certain way and partnership with local businesses and partners. And also, it's important to understand, and the importance of the legal profession is also comes with this regards. So the local counsel and local lawyers provide certain support to those Chinese international enterprises which are coming and doing business in Kazakhstan. In terms of Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan of course is trying and working hard to develop its legal framework and also provide comparative advantage in connection compared to other countries in several sectors. And I would say that 5 sectors, namely food, live animals, crude materials, energy, chemical products, and manufactured goods, are the key sectors where Kazakhstan is very strong and promising. And whenever we say about the Chinese and international companies coming and doing business in Kazakhstan, mostly they're related to those 5 sectors. They're interested in those 5 sectors.
Sania,
So
your time is up.
Yes, I would say that we need to focus more on geopolitical situation and also economic situation. And with this COVID-19 pandemic, cooperation and understanding each other's culture and legal framework is important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sania. Our next speaker is Ms. Pauline Goh from Invest KL, Malaysia. She's the Director of Investor Relations China for Invest KL Corporation in Malaysia. I will now call upon Pauline to give us a presentation on the position in Malaysia. Pauline, can you hear us? Yeah. You have to You have to unmute yourself, Pauline.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jeff and LAWASIA, for inviting me to speak this afternoon. I suppose I'm the odd one out, that I'm not a lawyer. Okay. So I'm here to compliment Jeff. So any legal matters, any legal information, Jeff will be able to complement. So let me share with you Malaysia as a regional service and manufacturing hub in the Belt and Road. All right. So I'm going to first introduce a little bit of Invest KL, and I'm going to share why Malaysia is positioned as a regional services and manufacturing hub, especially for Belt and Road in ASEAN countries. So Invest KL, we are one of the 13 investment promotion agencies under our Ministry of International Trade and Industry, as you can see here. And we started in July 2011 with a mandate to attract 100 large multinational companies to use Greater KL as the regional location. So we wanted all of them to move up the value chain from the GBS, Shared Service Center, to the Center of Excellence, to a supply chain hub, and ultimately to a regional headquarters. And by end of last year, we are very lucky to achieve 91 MNCs from Europe, US, and Asia, China inclusive, to set up various types of their regional activities in Greater KL. Now, I'd like to share with you why Malaysia as a regional services and manufacturing hub. As you know, Malaysia, we are part of the Silk Road since the 15th century. right? So through the state of Malacca. So Chen Ho came to Malaysia in 1409. So we are always a trading nation. And, you know, with the changes of time, we are also want to position ourselves, you know, as a, not only as a maritime hub, but we also want to position ourselves as part of a digital Silk Road, right? That is happening right now. So why Malaysia? So Malaysia, we are located at the heart of ASEAN. So ASEAN is a very important component right now. We are the 6th largest economy in the world. And by 2030, ASEAN will be the 4th largest economy in the world, right? So this is a very important, you know, for the Belt and Road. And we have a very young population, also with 650 million people. And Malaysia, we have very good FTAs. We have 7 bilateral FTAs and 6 regional FTAs that you can see from here, and also 74 DTAs. But what is very important for us is the RCEP, yeah, which is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which we hope to conclude by this year, if not next year, right? So this includes ASEAN plus the 6 major countries, which contributes to 40% of the world's GDP, right? So the 6 countries is China, Korea, Japan, India, Australia, and New Zealand. And Malaysia, we also have, you know, participated in the CPTPP. So hopefully we will also be able to rectify, if not this year, then next year, right? So these will give us, you know, access to the other 10 countries, right, in the world. So where do we rank in terms of business friendliness? So Malaysia, we are ranked number 12 in the world by World Bank, right, in terms of doing business. So we have moved up from 25 to 15 and now to 12. And in terms of World Economic Forum report on competitiveness, Malaysia is ranked number 27 in the world. And in the Economist Intelligence Business Environment ranking, we are ranked 28 in the world. But most importantly, like I mentioned, we want to position Malaysia as a services hub. We are ranked number 3rd in the world by AT Kearney in the last 17 years as a shared service location after India and China. So another good reason is connectivity, right? Like I mentioned, we've been a trading hub since the 15th century to Malacca. So our Port Klang is the 17th busiest port in the world, 12th busiest port in the world, and Tanjung Pelepas, which is adjacent to Singapore, is now the 18th busiest port in the world. And from Malaysia, you can travel everywhere into Asia within the, you know, 4 to 6 hours. So this is truly important, and why I say, you know, as a services hub, because Malaysians, we are truly multilingual and multicultural. So, you know, if you come to Malaysia, you can find all the Asian language, you know, in Malaysia. So that's why we are ranked number 3rd in the world as a service location, where you can find, you know, people speaking Korean, Japanese, and all the 10 ASEAN language. And we Malaysians ourselves, most of us can speak 3 languages. Myself, I'm a 3rd generation Chinese, so I speak Mandarin, Bahasa Malaysia, which is similar to Indonesia, and of course English, which is learned by everyone in Malaysia at the age of 7. So this is another point that I'd like, you know, to draw your attention. So you can see that this is a Mercer cost of living report. This is a 2020 number. KL, we are ranked 141st most expensive city in the world, whereby our friendly neighbor, Hong Kong, is number 1 in the world, and Singapore is number 5th in the world. And you can see right? The cost comparison of the three cities. So, when you are considering setting up your regional operations, definitely it's good to think about Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia, right? You can look at the cost of the office space, of a talent, of the hotel, and also international school. So this is also important for investment, yeah, where we allowed companies to have 100% ownership of their business. We allow companies to repatriate 100% of their income, and we are still welcome all the expats to operate in Malaysia. So we have a good tax incentive. This is for manufacturing, and this is actually for ICT and shared services. And then this is for principal hub, right? Making Malaysia as your regional location. So these are some of the Chinese projects that we have in Malaysia, in the solar panel, in the rail, and Huawei. Huawei has come to Malaysia since year 2000, and they have actually used Malaysia as a South Pacific hub since then. And they have taken advantage, of the easy access and the talent that we have by having their one of their global training hubs in Malaysia. So Huawei is a global company. So instead of some of the international MNCs flying to China, which sometimes is difficult to get a visa, they can all come to Malaysia to do their training, right? So Malaysia is we have very good bilateral relationships with most countries that, a lot of countries, they don't need visa to come to Malaysia. And then we have the first Chinese university set up in Malaysia, which is Xiamen University, where it's already operating for the last 5 years. And we have a glass factory, steel. Yeah, so this is a very important area, which is a Kuantan port. We have twin city with Qingzhou in China. So Alliance Steel has a few thousand people here. And this is one of the state-of-the-art manufacturing plant. And also not forgetting Sabah and Sarawak. So, and then you can see the rest of the projects that we have. And Jeff has mentioned about, our Bandar Malaysia, and we have also ECRL. So I'm sharing the slides, so you can pick up the slides later if you're keen. So these are some of the Chinese companies operating in Malaysia. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Pauline, for an excellent explanation of Malaysia as an investment hub for Chinese companies. Pauline is in charge of the investor relations for China, as well as formerly in charge of the Malaysia Special Channel for Chinese companies. I would just like to add to her presentation by saying that on the legal side, we have the Asian International Arbitration Center that provide arbitration and mediation services, plus also the Malaysian Mediation Center, which provide mediation. This one is important because in the COVID-19 situation here in Malaysia, we have a new COVID-19 law that recommends mediation to resolve COVID-19 disputes. And Malaysian Mediation Center has signed many MOUs with mediation centers in China, with CCPIT and a few others. And we have 700 mediators in Malaysia. So through this combination of the MOUs, as well as the Malaysian COVID-19 Mediation Initiative, a national initiative, Malaysian mediators will be well positioned to help resolve disputes, not just for Malaysian domestic situation, plus also international commercial disputes, plus also the Belt and Road Initiative disputes. Well, we now have finished the panel speakers. We have the last person to speak is Mr. Takayuki Usui, an attorney from Japan, from Ripple Partners. He'll be our commentator. Mr. Usui.
Hey, hello. My name is Takayuki Usui, and I'm from Japan. I would like to make some brief comments. We had very informative presentations by 7 panelists today. Ms. Zhang from Beijing told us the roles and contributions of Chinese lawyers in view of the importance of legal safeguard in implementing BRI. And I would like to continue to have close relationship with Chinese lawyers and hear about the legal research results in relation to the BRI. Mrs. Chang from Ningbo, China, introduced to us about Zhejiang as the hub in OBR, especially the importance of Ningbo and Yiwu. Ningbo as a core city of economic and trade cooperation demonstration zone, and Yiwu as a core of first cargo way, Yixingwu, linking Yiwu to Europe. Hope to continue to learn more about the development of these important BRI hubs. Ms. Commodore of UNCITAR told us the UNCITAR's mandate of progressive harmonization of international trade law, and she especially told about Singapore Convention on Mediation, and I'm sure that this will continue to be this will newly become helpful tools in implementing BRI. Mr. Nasir from Hong Kong introduced Hong Kong's role as hubs for legal service under common law system, dispute resolutions with arbitration that allows enforcement of interim measures between mainland China and so third-party funding, and abilities for providing grid infrastructure services. Mrs. So from Singapore let us know that Singapore is a good place to make connection with Chinese SOEs and China's big tech giants as they choose Singapore as their Asian hub. Also, he told us about SICC, which will surely become a good choice of dispute resolutions in BRI. Ms. Perzadeva from Kazakhstan told us about the position of Kazakhstan as it provides shortest land route between China and Europe, making it an ideal BRI hub. And she told about AIFC and also the importance of and that at AIFC, English law is available and Islamic finance is provided. So she also emphasized the importance of Chinese companies building partnership with local companies and support by local legal councils, which we also wish to have a close relationship. Ms. Go from Malaysia introduced Investco as agency under MITI, Malaysia's position within Asian markets, its investment policies and incentives, Chinese investment projects and opportunities. I myself made my PowerPoint on Japan and One Belt, One Road. It's on Japan-China third country market cooperation and the possibility of Japan joining AIAB. So it's on 中日第三国市场合作以及日本加入亚投行的可能性。It will be uploaded to the Belt and Road webinar page of the LAWASIA website after the same webinar. So please kindly visit it after this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Usui, for your comments. And also, I must say that Mr. Usui has come up with a good PPT on Japan's role in third country support for the Belt and Road Initiative. So make it a point to learn about Japan's role, because not many of us are aware of this, and he has done an excellent job giving us information on Japan's involvement in the Belt and Road Initiative. We have now entered into question and answer time, but I've noticed among the participants, at least 3 persons have raised their hands. So I'm now going to perhaps, let me see whether I can see them. Okay, Miss Rasamala, I think you have raised your hand. I will put, could you speak up and see what would what you would like to ask? Ms. Rasamala? Okay, maybe she's not here. Okay. How about Mr. Danraj Ranoji? I think you also raised your hand. You have any question? I can't seem to get them to talk. Okay, what I'll do now is maybe I'll quickly share a screen on some questions that were submitted to us. Okay, if you can see the screen, and invite the panelists to answer some of them. I think we have 5 minutes left, so maybe I will ask for an extra 10 minutes for this session. We can't answer all these questions, but I'll ask the panelists to help answer some of these. For example, how can mediation be effective in addressing development issues? Most of the speakers have spoken about this. Maybe I can just add on to say that when we first talk about mediation in our Belt and Road talks and seminars in China, we spoke about the importance of successful projects, and the more disputes you have, the more failures you're going to get in projects and investments along the Belt and Road. So mediation is a good way to sit down and talk to each other and try to resolve those disputes so that projects can carry on after modification to the terms and conditions, and workers can keep their jobs, economies can prosper, those companies can become successful to go on to do M&As, IPOs, expand business everywhere. So mediation to me is very, very important, and I'm very glad that investor-state disputes, they are talking about mediation now in Malaysia. As I mentioned earlier on, we are looking into this aspect as well, mediation of investor-state disputes. I'm not sure whether other panelists would like to say anything on mediation addressing development issues.
Hi, Mr. Jeff.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing about mediation is that sometimes a contract between two parties, but in this contract, we don't have any cost about arbitration. And because of maybe because of mistake or because of not familiar with arbitrations. So in case we have any problem, we can't take this contract to the arbitration center, such as Singapore Arbitration Center and the Hong Kong Arbitration Center. So mediation will play an important role in arbitration. And if we can use mediation and we can see if we can't settle with the problem, how about we send our case to, for example, to Singapore arbitration, Beijing, China, and Hong Kong arbitration and China. Maybe both parties will say that yes, it is very good. We agree to arbitrations. So mediation will play an important role before the arbitration, I think. I think this is a development of mediation, and we should try to have an agreement of arbitration when we use mediation. This is very important, I think. Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Shang. We have other questions. For example, if you look at the question and answer chat, question for Sania. What would you suggest to Chinese companies interested in doing business in Kazakhstan to be aware of when it comes to 2 or 3 of the most challenging local law issues these days? Sania?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, I would say the work permit is probably the first issue. When Chinese companies are entering the market, they have to be ready that in order to appoint a director, they need to get a work permit. So this regulation in connection to the workforce is quite restrictive, and the Chinese companies have to be aware of these things. Secondly, basically, when they're doing the business, they're interested in getting the payments in international currency, in hard currency like dollars. This is also important to be aware and maybe engage a lawyer how to do this, because there are several nuances, and they have to put this in advance, basically. And if the financing is made by EBRD or ADB, they have to be prepared that some of the payments will be still made in local currency, usually. And the third issue is probably the licensing. Whenever there is a construction or any other activity, many activities are subject to licensing in Kazakhstan. And before they go for a tender and negotiations, in advance, they need to get those licenses. So it will take some time. It's not that difficult, but in many cases, Chinese companies assume that they can use Chinese license or some other international license in Kazakhstan, but generally no, they need to get a local license. So I would say that those are three main issues. When the Chinese companies are doing business in Kazakhstan, they need to be aware of.
Thank you. Thank you, Sania. There's one more question in our question and answer chat from Henning. Is there a list of projects which BRI offers, and to what institutions should I recommend my clients to apply to get information on BRI projects and financing? So maybe for this one, Mr. Amir Ali from Hong Kong or Winston from Singapore could try and answer this question. A list of BRI projects, how to get the list?
I don't think there is a list that's available, but what I do remember is that there was a signing ceremony for BRI projects in Beijing, I think last year, the year before. So you can get hold of, some lists or some record of that. You should be able to see all the contracts you entered. There was one, I can't remember, but I don't think there's a list, official list of all the BRI projects available. But I do remember that there was a big signing ceremony for quite a few of the BRI projects in, I think, Beijing last year. So I think that occasionally happens. So you can check on that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Winston. There's a Dave Young who raised his hand. Let me see whether I can get him to speak. Dave, can you speak and ask your question? Dave, we can't hear you.
I think it's a mistake. He just wrote in the chat or the Q&A. It's a mistake.
Okay, it's all right. Then maybe the last question, maybe in the interest of time, the position on signature of documents and agreements in Belt and Road countries. I think this is very often the case. I think we have seen this almost every day in the hubs in Hong Kong, Singapore, people signing documents and then having it to be witnessed and all that. So I think Mr. Amir Ali in Hong Kong came across this recently. So over to you, Mr. Amir Ali, to answer this question. Signing of documents and agreements in Belt and Road countries. I'm not sure whether Mr. Amir Ali is there. Never mind, let me answer this question. I think basically it depends on which country you're from. If you're common law country or civil law country. Recently, we have a case where a Singapore law firm contacted us to get some documents legalized in the Afghan embassy because there's no Afghan embassy in Singapore. So we had to run between the Singapore embassy in Kuala Lumpur and the Afghan embassy in Kuala Lumpur to get the document legalized. What this is that after the documents has been signed by the notary public, you must go to the embassy to get the consular officer in the embassy to legalize those documents. Common, not just in Belt and Road countries, but every time we have other situations, Asia Pacific, Asia Europe kind of transactions, not Belt and Road, signing of documents always face the same issue. So it's going to be the same issue as well, how it's going to be resolved in Belt and Road countries. I'm not sure whether anyone else can add your experience in getting documents signed.
Jeff, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is highlighted a big issue in Hong Kong as well.
Yes.
I think in England, for instance, they've changed the rules so that wills can be signed, at least during the COVID period, by can be witnessed through remote hosting. But in Hong Kong, we filed that because of the Kane law cases, we can't actually deal with that. The other issue is, of course, in Hong Kong, we have the Electronic Transactions Ordinance, and it's providing the two parties agree, and one of the parties is not a government entity, you can actually apply a digital electronic signature to a digital record, and maybe that's one way to establish a common framework for execution of documents and witnessing of documents across the Belt and Road companies, perhaps based both on physical as well as electronic signatures. And I think there's a great need for a standard format for signatures as well as witnessing by lawyers, with possibly a form of authentication based on notaries. So that's one thing that we need to work on at the legal level.
Thank you, Amir Ali. I think this is an excellent answer. I remember during the COVID-19 lockdowns, we cannot travel, obviously, and we were doing webinars like this where we have to sign MOUs between Malaysian Mediation Center and the Mediation Center in China. And we have to go online and see each other sign and then hold up the documents.
Yes.
So issues like this post-COVID-19 are going to be issues that we need to deal with in Belt and Road country. So thank you for your answer, Amir Ali. Thank you. Maybe we have one last question that I thought we should address, which is important to all of us in this COVID-19 situation here, which is the question: how will the Belt and Road Initiative address the loss of national economy due to the pandemic? Not sure whether any of the speakers would try to answer this. Maybe I should just attempt this answer first. Many of the, for example, in Malaysia, we have so many of the Belt and Road projects that were stopped during the lockdowns. Now they're restarted, including the 140 billion ringgit Bandar Malaysia project that I mentioned just now. The others are restarting again. And, you know, when you want to help economy recover, they talk about macroeconomic policies, Keynesian theory, infrastructure spending. So if you are looking to many countries using large infrastructure projects to try and kickstart their economy again to recover from the pandemic, then I think the funding from not just Belt and Road Initiative, but also other banks, World Banks, Asian Development Banks for infrastructure development will be important to help countries recover from the economic crisis resulting from the pandemic. Not sure whether any of the other financial hub speakers have anything else to add on this point.
Jeff, if I may.
Yeah.
I think the advantage of the Belt and Road Initiative, it is a very, very long-term project in its entirety. So it's many generations, not just one generation. But within a more micro level, of course, when you talk about infrastructure, then you may well be talking about 5, 10, 15-year projects. And that by its nature, because it's a 15-year project and because documentation has to be in place and finance has to be in place, that in itself is a sustainable feature of these kind of construction projects, with notwithstanding the COVID-19 circumstances, which I think will continue into next year, enable the sustainability of economic activity, because in themselves, they are long-term projects which are committed to both legally, financially, and socioeconomically as well by each of the parties. So in itself, it is a project which allows us to overcome the, what I might say, temporary economic downturn, which we will have because of the COVID-19.
Okay, thank you, Amir Ali, for that answer. There's one more last question that I think we should address, which came up in the question and answer chat from Rasamala. Is the use of international trade documents regulated for member countries of the Belt and Road Initiative? I think from this point of view, I'm not sure whether Atita has answer to this, but from my experience, I don't think Belt and Road Initiative has any multilateral understanding as of now. Maybe in future, it will need to look into that. But currently, I think it will probably rely on UN bodies and other multilateral bodies that provide this sort of support. So if Atita has an answer, we'll be grateful for your view on this.
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you to the participant for the question. Just to note that UNCITRAL also has in its portfolio several model laws as well as conventions relating to e-commerce and electronic communications. So if the states along the Belt and Road adopt those instruments, then there would be a harmonizing system for this aspect of the Belt and Road. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We have another person raising his hand, Chandra Mukti. If you can speak, please let us have your question before we call an end to this session. Mr. Mukti. I think maybe again he can't get through to us. If not, then it remains for me to thank all of you for joining this session. Unfortunately for this year, LAWASIA could not hold a physical meeting like this. We were supposed to be in Mongolia, and we can't do this physically, so we have to rely on webinar. And going forward, it will be more webinars for the foreseeable future because of COVID-19. So I thank on behalf of LAWASIA, all the panelists and the commentator and all of you who are participating today for your support of this webinar, and continue to support LAWASIA and contribute your ideas and your proposals on how we can help the Belt and Road become successful for the benefit of our own respective countries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.